Welcome to the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. Hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful Easter holiday weekend. Thank you all so much for your time. This is a two-part live pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. Today is the beginning of the trial in Idaho pertaining to her children and the murders of her last husband, Mr. Charles, and Chad's wife. You may hear a little noise in the background. I'm getting an oil change during this live stream. So I'm in the room, but you might hear a little bit of chitter chatter through the glass. But I wanted to try to get this live in while I had free time this morning before going to work. I want to thank you all so much for joining me. Two-part live, Lori Vallow Daybell. And did Kohberger know the girls, meet the girls, stalk the girls before he moved to Washington State? Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, it is what it is. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get started before I get too much background noise. Thank you all so much. ABC News is the source. Opening arguments are slated to begin in Idaho Monday, which is today, in the murder trial of Lori Vallow Daybell, who is accused of killing two of her children in a doomsday plot. Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband, Chad Daybell, were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the 2019 deaths of her children, Joshua J.J. Vallow, 7, and Tylee Ryan, 17. They were also charged with conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Chad Daybell's former wife, Tamara Daybell, who died October 19, 2019, less than a month before Lori and Chad married. Chad Daybell was also charged with his former wife's murder. The couple, who both reportedly adhered to a doomsday ideology, have pled not guilty to their charges. Last month, a Fremont County judge allowed their cases to be tried separately, with Chad Daybell expected to start at a later date. Chad Daybell is the author of many religious fiction books. Remember that. Fiction. The judge has granted the defense's motion to dismiss the death penalty in the Lori Vallow Daybell's case. So for those who are new to this case and information, Lori will not face the death penalty in these murders, but we will see if Chad will face the death penalty in these murders. Lori Vallow Daybell was deemed fit to stand trial last year following a 10-month stint at an Idaho mental health facility. Her attorneys have said they do not plan to raise a mental health defense at the guilt phase portion of the trial. She had at one point claimed she was a god assigned to carry out the work of the 144,000 at Christ's second coming in July 2020, and didn't want anything to do with her family because she had a more important mission to carry out, quote unquote. According to court documents obtained by ABC News, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell were indicted on murder charges nearly a year after authorities discovered the remains of her children on property belonging to Chad Daybell. The children hadn't been seen since September 2019 and were reported missing by extended family members to police in November of 2019. Additionally, Lori Vallow Daybell was indicted on the charge of grand theft related to Social Security survivor benefits allocated for the care of her children that prosecutors said were appropriated after the children were missing and ultimately found dead. Chad Daybell was also charged with 2 counts of insurance fraud related to life insurance policies he had on Tamara Daybell, for which he was the beneficiary, prosecutors said. Lori Vallow Daybell has also been accused of conspiring to kill her previous husband, Charles Vallow. He was fatally shot by Lori's brother in 2019 during a confrontation at her Arizona home. Her brother, Alex Cox, said he shot his brother-in-law in self-defense. Police were investigating the claims when Cox died from natural causes months later. In 2021, a grand jury indicted Lori Vallow Daybell on 1 count of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of Charles Vallow. ABC News is the source. So we hear that her attorneys are not going to use mental health as an issue, as a defense in this trial. I'm going to go back and read it. It says her attorneys have said they do not plan to raise a mental health defense at the guilt phase portion of the trial, but perhaps they will mention it in another part of the trial. And which part might that be? She's also up for fraud, charges of fraud, getting benefits for her 2 children, knowing they were dead, orchestrating their deaths, and yet never brought the children forward as mandated by the court. So we have conspiring to kill children, killing children, concealing their deaths, Social Security benefits fraud. Also, Chad is facing fraud by the insurance agency for being the beneficiary of his wife's insurance policy. This is bad. And yet these are the same people who will say they didn't do anything wrong. Will Lori turn on Chad? Will Chad turn on Lori? What will his defense be? What is her defense going to be? As I have stated at the beginning of this live stream, today marks the first day of trial in Idaho. She is not facing the death penalty. So 9 times out of 10, she will get life if indeed found guilty. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. And we got to pray. We have to pray. There will be no empathetic jurors on the panel. Very interesting information. So what do you all think? Will she cry in court? It is said on Friday she cried. A woman has come out who would have been a potential juror but was dismissed by both sides, said that she looked her eye to eye and saw her crying in court on Friday. Lord, what were you crying about? And were you actually crying? Because you have shown no emotion. And that's what this lady has stated in her news interview, that the entire time the children were missing, you and Chad were doing whatever it is that you all were doing. And you went lollygagging around from state to state with no remorse for the deaths of these people, children. But yet you finally sit in court, and just a few days before your grand appearance, which is today, you decide to cry in court. Why? Why now? I'm curious myself. I'm very curious. Let me see if I can find that information. What I just read to you is by ABC News if you need verification for the said information. Let's see what we can find about this crying in court. Have mercy. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Thank you for your time. Please go to my community page for said updates and information. Fox 10 is the source of this information. This was uploaded 2 days ago. Lori Vallow, Idaho woman summoned for jury duty, says Tuesday mom cried in courtroom. How about that? You can't make this up. Let's hear what this lady has to say. Will Lori cry in court today? Will she cry for 2 months? This trial is expected to run for 2 months. Will our blonde-haired beauty be crying in court? Will she pass out in court? I think she'll pass out when they read how they found the children and the manner of death, which she knows how they died and how and why they died. She orchestrated, she and Chad and her brother, and probably that niece too. This should be interesting, these 2 months in court. Let's get this information out here.
The exclusive interview tonight, Justin. Hey, Brian, Christina, remember 1,800 people here in Ada County were summoned for jury duty. They were asked to fill out questionnaires so the court could figure out how much they knew about this case and how fair they would be. We met with a woman who did not make it on the jury, but she describes emotions we've rarely seen from Lori Vallow. Day 5 of trial, we watched Lori Vallow more engaged than ever. She and her 2 attorneys whispered over which 12 jurors they would strike from the pool. She took notes and looked focused. The prosecution struck 12 jurors as well, and now selection is over. But last Monday, Tracy Poff was summoned for jury duty and entered a packed courtroom.
I saw her and I turned to a lady that was to my right and I said, holy that's Lori Vallow.
Face to face about 20 feet away, Vallow is charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy in the deaths of her kids, 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. She's also accused of conspiring with her husband, Chad Daybell, in the murder of his first wife, Tammy Daybell. As the judge read the charges to the group,
I made direct eye contact with her, locked eyes with her. Not long after, I could tell that she was starting to cry. And she had to pick up her glasses to wipe her tears.
Poff has followed the case through media coverage, shocked by Vallow's sudden tears.
And the bailiff took the box of tissues over to her, and she said thank you to the bailiff.
The group was then asked to fill out questionnaires.
I think it was question 6 that asked if I knew who the names Tylee, JJ, and then Tamara.
I'm going to go back a little bit, you guys. Hold on one second.
That's Lori Vallow.
Face to face, about 20 feet away, Vallow is charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy in the deaths of her kids, 7-year-old JJ Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. She's also accused of conspiring with her husband, Chad Daybell, in the murder of his first wife, Tammy Daybell. As the judge read the charges to the group,
I made direct eye contact with her, locked eyes with her. Not long after, I could tell that she was starting to cry. And she had to pick up her glasses to...
So we hear that the judge read the charges. So are they saying in this commentary, or this lady, that when the charges were read by the judge, this is when Lori began to cry? Is that what this lady is saying? That when the charges were read, she cried? Did she cry because she actually felt remorse for the deaths of the children, Charles and Tamara, or she's crying for herself, that she knows she's not facing the death penalty, but she will die in prison if 12 members of the jury find her guilty of the said charges, that she knows she's not getting out of there? Was she crying for self, putting on because she had now people who could look at her as a human being? No more just sitting in a court with a bailiff, the state, her defense attorneys, the judge, but now people who can look at her as a human being. Did she cry for show in court on Friday? Or has she finally come to grips and terms with what she has done, which is murder, plural, and she actually has feelings? Tell me what you think in the chat. Say yes if you believe she has empathy for these deaths of these people, the children, or no, she cried for show. Let's finish this commentary. Thank you all so much for joining me. This commentary is by Fox 10 Phoenix.
She was starting to cry, and she had to pick up her glasses to wipe her tears.
Poff has followed the case through media coverage, shocked by Vallow's sudden tears.
And the bailiff took the box of tissues over to her, and she said thank you to the bailiff.
The group was then asked to fill out questionnaires.
I think it was question 6 that asked if I knew who the names Tylee, JJ, and then Tamara. That was one of the questions. It was on the bottom of the 3rd page, and I said yes.
She would be excused from trial via email. She says the moment in the courtroom with Vallow was surreal, and as a mother of 2, something triggered her.
Why the emotion now? You have not shown any emotion this entire time, and now that the charges are being read of your children being murdered, you're going to start to show emotion. I was just angry. I was really angry.
Now, out of the selected jurors, we know there are 10 men and 8 women. They will be sworn in on Monday morning, and then 12 of them will be selected as the final to sit on this jury as opening statements begin. And they have been asked to stay off social media and to not communicate with anyone about this case at all. I did get a ticket inside the main courtroom for Monday, so I will be live tweeting what happens throughout the day. Brian?
Justin, any talk of sequestering the jury?
That was talked about a little bit. The judge has not said there will be any sequestering at all. He indicated maybe at some time before a verdict is reached, way down the line. This is supposed to last 7 to 8 weeks. But these jurors are going to go home at the end of the day throughout these weeks.
And we will see you there from Boise. Thank you for that live report tonight. Justin, as you heard, will stay there for the start of the trial. You can catch his reports right here on Fox 10. And he'll be giving us live updates on his Twitter page and our website, fox10phoenix.com/Vallow.
All right, everybody. Fox 10 News, Phoenix is the source. This woman was removed as a potential juror, not chosen, locked eye to eye with her, so she says, saw that she appeared teary, Lori Vallow Daybell. Bailiff brought her tissue. She is angry because she feels this woman has waited to the last minute to decide to show emotion. I've asked you in the chat, do you believe that this emotion of crying is genuine or not? Please verify in the chat if you're viewing this live stream. And is it possible that the defense saw anger in this potential juror and said, well, we don't want her. She looks mad. She looks like she's angry. Because people can get a vibe from you when they ask you certain questions. Do you believe there was anybody that was a potential juror that hadn't heard of this case, although they live in the state of Idaho? Number one. Number two, do you believe there is a juror that has not heard? Is it possible that some of the people who was brought in and asked these questions never heard of Lori Vallow Daybell nor Chad Daybell? And number two, the jury panel that has been chosen, is there a jury member on this jury for Lori? He or she has not heard of her or Chad or this case. Imagine that. You hear that they will not be sequestered after adjourning for the day. They will go home, the jury panel. Will someone slip up and talk about what happens in court? God forbid. We do not need a mistrial. We do not need anyone who has not told the whole truth in their jury questionnaire, because that's what happened with Scott Peterson, why he was able to get a new court date pertaining to the death of his wife and child in California, because they found out later that one of the women who was on the jury lied on the questionnaire that she had been in an abusive relationship. So imagine if we later find out somebody who is on the jury did not tell the truth pertaining to whatever question was asked by the state and by the defense. What will they say? Yay or no for Lori Vallow Daybell? Will she be found guilty? Will she cry in court? Will she fall out, pass out, show out in court? Will she be made up like a scream queen with gobs of makeup? God forbid. Because that last picture I saw with that eyeshadow, I just can't stand it. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Please, somebody remove that makeup. She looks horrible. That is to say information. Hold on one moment, please. Sorry about that. Telling me I'm leaking oil and they want to check. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. Oh, what a day to get started. Okay, everybody, I'm back. As I said, will she show emotion in court? Will she cry? Because as I said, eventually the state is going to show, I'm sure, what the children look like at discovery, once dug up in the shallow graves they were in, and the manner of death for each child. I'm sure she'll cry and fall out then, for sure. Thank you all so much for your time. What is Chad thinking right now? Has he been talking to Lori? I've wondered about that. You don't hear much about that, about their correspondence with one another, Chad and Lori. Sorry about this noise. I don't know what this noise is in the background. Are they communicating, Chad and Lori? Do they talk, video chat, write letters to one another? What will be the defense for Lori these upcoming weeks? And what will happen with Chad's defense? Will he put it all on Lori and her brother, Alex? And as most of you know who's been following this information, Alex Cox is not alive. Did he actually die of natural causes? I'm wondering about that. How befitting is it of him to die shortly after all of these deaths of alleged natural causes? Very interesting. Did the government do anything with Lori's husband? What do you mean, Hagen? These people just trying to get money out of me today. Let's go to Kohberger, everybody. News Nation is the source. Ex-FBI agent, Idaho suspect Brian Kohberger may have met victims a year before killings. So you're going to hear information pertaining to possible seizure of information going back a year pertaining to records, Kohberger's phone devices. Is it just cautionary information? They wanted to see how long he's been watching these girls, stalking these girls, or one of the victims, or they have information that he was stalking these kids a year or so beforehand, before he even went to Washington State. And as I've asked many times during my live streams, why did he go to Washington State for this program? Did he go there to kill, see what it's like to kill someone? So he went way out of his jurisdiction. But the point is, if you're going to get caught, it doesn't really matter where you go to kill a person. Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Chicago. He was going to get caught. And they've asked that question as well. Has he murdered before? Well, he was stupid enough to put all this information on his devices, walk around, drive his car. He would have done the same thing in any other state. He would have been caught because he's not very bright. Now, of course, I could be wrong. He has killed before. But due to his behavior in Washington and Idaho, I can't see him killing somebody else and not being caught, because he was doing stupid stuff pertaining to this case here. News Nation is the source, everybody. But I would like to know, did he deliberately apply to this school, Washington State University, because of these kids, and or because he wanted to kill and he wanted to be farther out of his jurisdiction of Pennsylvania? Thank you for your time. All right, everybody. News Nation is the source. If I sound a little bit off, I'm kind of leery right now because, as I said, I'm getting an oil change and I think they're trying to milk more money out of me because I had a coupon for an oil change. Now you're coming here saying it's leaking oil. Oh, we've got pictures to show oils everywhere and all of this nonsense. It could be your valve cover, blah, blah, blah. So I asked, well, how much is it if it's the valve cover? Oh, about $5. I thought, what, $4 or $5? Oh, $400 or $500. You'll never get $400 or $500 out of the Queen for no valve cover, nothing. that ain't about to happen today. $400 or $500 on a $20 oil change. Okay. They must think the Queen is slow. She's not.
A new theory tonight in the University of Idaho homicides, and it may provide new insight into Brian Kohberger's mindset and possible motive. Kohberger, who was arrested in December and charged with the deaths of 4 students, may have come across his alleged victims at a much earlier date than first thought. More than a few weeks, more than a few months, more than a year. 2 weeks before the murders, Kohberger reportedly sent a series of messages to one of the victims on Instagram, according to People magazine, which is what many thought was the earliest contact he had with the victims. The recent court documents show authorities submitted several search warrants to social media companies, which date back to January 2021. That would put us back nearly 2 years before the murders. In a tweet this weekend, former FBI agent and News Nation contributor Jennifer Coffendaffer said, "Interesting how far the search warrants went back in time. Why January 2021? Did Brian Kohberger somehow meet Kaylee or Maddie on a possible school visit early on? What made Kohberger choose Washington State University? Did Kohberger have a nexus with his victims sooner than we thought?" Could also be that they're just trying to make sure they don't miss anything. But let's ask the person who said it, former FBI agent, News Nation contributor, Jennifer Coffendaffer. Thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, so take me through.
Let me pause right here. I'll be right back, you guys. Hold on one second. Okay, the queen is back. Sorry about that. Yes, I'm live, honey. Honey, queen was checking her finances, honey. They trying to get some extra funds out of the queen. I just came to get an oil change. They talking about they see it leaking oil and all that. And where I've been parking, I haven't seen any oil stains, but you know how that goes. This is a place where people try to make money off of women. I think we already know this, but you all know the queen. Anybody that follows this content knows this network. You know you cannot bamboozle this girl. Thank you all for the following the content. Sorry for that interruption. Let's finish this information by News Nation pertaining to Kohberger. Did he know of the girls a year or so before, a few months before getting to Washington State? Why did he choose Washington State for the program, for the PhD program? Did he go there deliberately to kill these kids? He had knowledge of them beforehand, or he went to Washington State to murder, period. I believe he went out to Washington State to kill out of his jurisdiction. That's my personal opinion. But we may get information that he knew of the girls, found the girls on social media months, a year before, and they are the reason he went to Washington State. So that's the second part of this live stream. Did he know of the females before going to Washington State? He found them on social media and decided, okay, I'm hooked. I'm moving out here. I got to get close to her, them. Some of you believe that perhaps one of the surviving roommates knew of him, crossed paths with him, that one of them was supposed to be the intended target, victim. But then I always say, how's that possible? Because we know that he watched the house. He's watched social media pages. So he has a general idea of who was living in the house. So why do we have two survivors? You have to ask those questions. It's not to point fingers, but it is what it is.
Through this, your theory is that they're asking about January 2021, not just to be inclusive, but because they may actually know something?
Well, whenever you're a law enforcement officer and you're meeting with your prosecutor and you're putting together these search warrant packages and subpoenas that we haven't even seen, you very specifically outline the date range that you want. And you have to have a reason for wanting this date range. I think it's very interesting. It specifically tunes into TikTok, Tinder, and then also Google. And it also is very specific to particular people. Ethan is not even considered in these particular set of warrants. And so I think that gives us some clues. It tells us that law enforcement believes possibly that they had a connection well prior to the time frame we thought. And that could either be through social media or through physically meeting them on a visit there.
And you think that it's possible that he may have chosen Washington State University to get his degree or to study because of some sort of relationship connection to the victims?
I think it's possible. Certainly law enforcement is going to be looking in every direction, including that direction. Could that have led him to choose this university clear across the country from Pennsylvania, where he had previously attended for his undergraduate and his master's degree? What took him there? That has to be at least considered. And when you look at this time frame they chose, I think that gives us a pointer as a possibility.
And the search warrants call for E11 all activity logs of the accounts, including who the account followed and unfollowed, location data, and messages sent or received from the account. So should we expect that all of that information will be turned over?
Oh, yes, it'll be turned over. And another reason why law enforcement likes to limit their date range to what is pertinent and what they believe could lead something in their investigation that would be important is you don't want to go over, all of this information going back too far in time. It is so much to look at. If you just see this document dump, they call it, or documents that you see, it's hundreds and hundreds of pages long. Imagine what the returns look like. It's going to be thousands of pages long. So there was a reason that they put in these specific parameters.
Jennifer, thank you very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for watching.
All right, everybody. That's Dan Abrams, News Nation, and Miss Coffin-Daffer, retired ex-FBI agent who consults with News Nation. So the dump of his phone and devices a year or so back, what will the dumps reveal pertaining to the victims in the house, any other students at WSU, any other women in Washington State, any other women in Idaho and or at the university or the town where these kids live, Moscow? What are we saying here? Will we find out he was stalking someone in another state, other states? I'm going to go to my community board. I'm going to put up a poll. Please take the poll. We're going to ask that question again pertaining to Kohberger. One second, you guys. Oh my goodness, it's always something pertaining to this case. So I'm asking, did BK stalk victims before moving to Washington? And you all can say, hold on one second. You'll have three options. Yes, no, not sure. That's my first question. Okay. I am curious. Let's see. We'll put another question on the community page. Did BK move to harm girls? Because we don't even know who the target is. Please go to community board to take these said questionnaires. You have three options: no, yes, and not sure. So, did BK move to Washington to harm girls? Second question. Did BK stalk victims before moving to Washington? So far, there are no votes. I don't understand any of this mess with BK. And I guess I will never understand because I don't have that mindset to murder people. And I've been watching a lot of true crime lately. The ID channel's on all night. It plays all day and night. It just amazes me, the mindset, the things that go bump in the night that leads these men to this point of no return. I was listening to a show on the ID channel late this morning, and the guy was describing how he tied the lady up to the tree. And when you listen to him speak, you realize he just did this to torture her. He did ugly things to her. I don't know if it was during the torturing while she was alive or when she was already deceased, but it's just very interesting. All right, my vehicle is ready, but nonetheless, the man, he's just a narcissist, playing mind games with the detectives. They're asking him questions. You have to ask yourself, why are you putting dirt in someone's mouth? Then they said he put something in an anal canal, some type of liquid. What could that have been? It was just ridiculous. and sickening. Then he's telling them, well, she should have known. I guess basically not to have gone with him. So I don't know if this was a hookup or he kidnapped her. But basically he's saying, well, she should have known where we were going. I think they were in a cemetery. She should have known something bad was going to happen. I'll have to watch the episode again. But it was just interesting listening to the way he was talking about her before death. Then he did nasty things to her body, putting things in her mouth and her anal. It's just, he had no care, no regard. And that's the point. He had nothing nice to say about the victim. That's why you knew he didn't like women. I don't think he liked his mother, perhaps, because usually men who do these type of nasty things to women, they usually don't have good relationships with their mother. Well, we find out that Kohberger didn't have a good relationship with his mother. It wasn't just girls teasing him in school, and it went on and on and on through high school, college. That perhaps he doesn't have a good relationship with his mother, because I can't see how you would have a good relationship with your mother, sisters, and then you would go out here and stalk women and then decide, okay, today's the day I'm going to murder them. How could you have respect for women and then murder them? You don't. So most of these men usually don't have good relationships with their mother. They don't respect their mother. Does he actually have a good relationship with his mother? Does he respect his mother? And once again, they go hand in hand. How can you respect your mother but go out here and kill a woman? Kill 3 girls and a guy. Why? When I was watching the ID channel, I saw Ronnie Lawson in an episode. And I'm going to read you that episode where he's giving commentary, because a murder took place in a small town. And I kept looking at him and I kept saying, that looks like the FBI agent. Then I had to jog my memory and I said, no, that's not the FBI agent. That's Ronnie Lawson. I couldn't think of his name at the time. So as I started saying Summer Wells, then his name came to me. And I was stunned when I saw him sitting up there on that TV screen speaking. Let me read you this episode so you all can go check it out on the ID channel. This should be very interesting. The series is called Murder Comes to Town, The Sinner and the Saint, Season 5, Episode 9. It runs 60 minutes. And it was produced in 2018. For those of you who like true crime, you will see Mr. Ronnie Lawson, the infamous sheriff from Rogersville. What is it, Hawkins County? Yes, Hawkins County, I believe. If I'm not saying it correctly, because I start forgetting things as time goes by. But anyway, I heard his voice and I saw his face. And I said, this person looks familiar. So you will see Mr. Ronnie Lawson in Murder Comes to Town, The Sinner and the Saint, Season 5, Episode 9. 60 minutes running about a small town murder. And the first thing I thought, I sure hope you solve this crime, because you haven't solved the crime with Summer Wells. I'm just saying. Very interesting for those of you who want to watch that episode. I don't have much to say. I have a low viewing audience right now. I'm a little bit off kilt dealing with this place right now. I will come back on later to bring you said information pertaining to Lori, what happens in court, because I'll get a update once trial is over with today. Day 1, I'll bring you information pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. I'll also bring you more information pertaining to Brian C. Kohberger, who has been charged with the murders of 4 students from the University of Idaho. This information from News Nation, as you heard Coffin Daffer saying, lots of documents. And I'm sure it probably is a lot, because he probably stayed on social media and the internet. Did he know of the victims before moving to Washington State? Did he find them by suggestion, Facebook, IG, and started stalking one of the victims or all of them before moving to Washington? What is the actual date that he landed? That's what I'd like to know. Because we got phone records from the affidavits from months ago where they show his phone number, and it's a number he brought to Washington State from Pennsylvania. But I'd like to know, when did he actually move into his apartment? Number one. Number two, when did he get knowledge of the girls, the victims? Did he stalk these young women before moving there? And if he stalked them before moving to Washington State, how long was he stalking the victims? 6 months, 7 months, a year, 2 years? If I find out this has been going on for 6 months or more before he touched down, this will be bad, because then we have to ask, you know how long it takes to apply for schooling, a master's program, PhD, a bachelor's degree. You have to apply to school, get accepted. So that would be months in advance when you're applying for school. So what if all this was articulated, deliberate? He moved out there to be close to these girls. That would be devastating, because the crime is devastating already. But to know that he moved out there deliberately for the girls, not just to go murder people, but murder these people, be near them, touch them, like them, date them. Oh, I like her. She's pretty. Let me go apply to school out here somewhere close to the University of Idaho, and then proceed in the stalking. You're welcome, sweetheart. Thank you for watching, listening. What if indeed this has been going on for months, a year, and he moved out there deliberately to get close to one of the girls? He gets out there, it doesn't work out. He's messaging, she doesn't respond. So let's go here. How many times did he message the victim? Did he try to reach out to one of the other girls to get to one of the girls? Did he try to reach out to one of the survivors to get to the girls? See, that's an interesting question. Did he reach out to the survivors to try to get to one of the victims, the intended victims? See, we don't even know who the damn victim is. The intended victim, excuse my language. Who was the intended victim? Who was the object of his desire, obsession, interest? And why go kill her because she didn't respond? Many people don't check their messages, message requests on Facebook and IG. Many people don't be on them often. They have profiles, but they don't post regularly. What is the truth of this information? Who has been talking to News Nation and bringing them information? Some people are a little perturbed by News Nation and their sources of information pertaining to this case. As most of you know, there's a gag order in this case. So who's been running the News Nation, giving up this information pertaining to the girls, the victims, the survivors, and now BK, that possibly he knew of them? Did he meet the girls a year or so before he got there? So then we have to ask, how many times has he visited Idaho and Washington State? A lot of questions, and we won't get an answer until he goes to trial. And God forbid how much information they have to unload in the court pertaining to devices, iPads, computers, motherboards, so on and so forth, phones. I won't doubt that he had one of the girls as a screensaver. Because when you're that sick, you do anything. Walk around with a pretty girl's face as a screensaver. People see your phone sitting on the table. Oh, who's that pretty girl? Oh, that's my girlfriend. When he doesn't even know her, never met her. It's crazy. I'll be back a little later with more information. And I want to thank you for your time. God bless all of you. Hope you had a safe weekend, Easter weekend. We'll be bringing you more stimulating conversation and content. We'll try to do a little something different this week for the viewing audience. But this was a two-part live pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell and Brian Kohberger. Lori will go to trial, first day of trial today. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 2 hours ahead of Idaho. So it should be a little bit after 9 a.m. Court should be starting out there in Idaho. I will bring you commentary later this evening pertaining to what happened in court. Will she fall out, pass out, show out, cry? Is she still talking to her husband? What will his defense be? And what will her defense be in this trial? She's not facing the death penalty. Many of us feel like she should, but she is not. Will Mr. Chad faced the death penalty. Are they speaking, talking? Will he blame her? Will he tell the truth of what actually happened to the children, his wife, her husband? Will she tell the truth pertaining to her children, her husband, his wife, Mr. Chad's wife? What will her defense be? Will she cry in court? That's my commentary. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during the live streams. Thank you for your time. I will be back later with more information pertaining to both subject matters and other content. Please go to my community board for the said questionnaire survey pertaining to Kohberger, and I will put another one up there pertaining to Miss Lori Vallow Daybell. I do hope that she has a better makeup artist today while in court, because I do not like those previous pictures of her. She does not look good with that eyeshadow. And Lori is aging terribly, but that is expected when you go to jail and prison, because you're worried. You know you're not coming out of there. And you start to get grayer, no hair dye. You don't look too good. And she looks like a real sad puppy dog. And I want to say this before I check out pertaining to Lori. The fact that she was in some mental health facility, was she really ill? Is she really ill? Does she have a real legal mental diagnosis? Or was she playing fake? Because I got a feeling we know she's sick, but there's not anything wrong with her, because there's a difference between you're just diabolical and then mentally ill. You have a dissociative personality, bipolar, schizophrenia, versus you're just damn evil. Which is it? Thank you for joining me. You have been listening to the Vallow Daybell.